This happened when I was in college. I lived in Isla Vista, the student community at UCSB, notorious for being a party school. Fully lived up to its reputation. I liked to party, but wow, these people were off the wall. As such, there were a lot of people who put themselves in dangerous situations, drinking to excess, not being careful, not locking doors, etc. Had a very isolated and insular vibe. And anyone who was hanging around who wasn't college aged immediately looked out of place and strange. One night, after having a few drinks, I came home to my small house where I lived with two other girls, probably around 2:30 a.m. We were all serious students. I was probably the least serious, actually. And when we partied, it was not your typical UCSB mega rager. It was more like a small get-together with friends. We would often have a few people spend the night, sleep on our furniture and our beds, as the case may be. That night, my roommates had had few people over who I did not know, and I saw when I returned home that one of them had opted to sleep on the couch from the shadow that I saw there. I didn't turn the light on, so I didn't wake anybody up. But as I was passing the couch to enter my bedroom, I noticed that the figure was lying very stiff. He just had this weird energy to him. He was laying down, but it was like he was putting all of his energy into lying as still and rigid as possible. I paused. The guy quickly jerked his head to face me, without moving his limbs, so quickly that it startled me. I could see his wide open eyes glinting in the dark. Figuring that I just startled him, or he was drunk, or maybe on some kind of stimulant and unable to sleep, I just hurried past into my bedroom and locked the door. The dude made me nervous and I wasn't taking any chances. I fell asleep. At 4:30, I woke up. There's a strange sound at the door, almost like somebody was drumming their fingers against the wood very quietly. I lay still and listened. There were more quiet sounds, like someone scratching the door with their fingers, which got louder and louder till it was clear that he was using both hands and scratching as fast and as hard as possible. It created an extremely loud and intimidating sound that filled me with fear. I got my cell phone and texted my roommate because I was afraid to make a sound. Your friend is freaking me out. Is he on coke? Can you talk to him? He's banging and scratching on my door. She didn't text me back, probably because she was asleep. I texted my other roommate to the same effect, covering all my bases. Keep in mind that the scratching had been going on at this point for a couple of minutes. I have no idea how he could have sustained it. Scratching a wooden door with your fingernails can't feel good. He also grabbed at the knob and jiggled it super forcefully. Because neither one of them answered, I decided to call and really wake them up. Though I was scared to make a sound. I know it sounds stupid, but there was something seriously horrifying about being teased like this through the door. I knew that he was trying to terrify me. I felt like a little kid, but I could tell this guy was fucked up or something, and maybe the police needed to be called. I wanted to loop my roommates in since it was one of their friends. The scratching stopped abruptly, and I called my roommate, who answered sleepily. Yo, your friend is messed up. Can you please deal with it? Do we need to call the cops? He's seriously scaring me, and he's scratching at my bedroom door. It's really weird. She didn't say anything for several seconds, and when she did speak, her voice had no sleepiness at all. What friend? She said. The guy that was sleeping on the couch, I said. She was quiet again. We didn't have any guys over, she said. Call the police. My adrenaline surged, and I told her to please lock the bedroom door as quickly as possible. I'd realized that I hadn't heard scratching in a while, and I had no clue where the dude had gone. Suddenly, I hear a loud banging on the other end of the house, where my roommates, Lauren and Monica, shared a bedroom. The bangs were followed by the sound of them screaming in fear. I quickly dialed the police as this maniac proceeded to bang against the, luckily, locked bedroom door of my two roommates as they screamed. The heaviness of the blows left no doubt that he was trying to break the door down. I had told the 911 operator of the situation, and she dispatched 2 squad cars. The police in Isla Vista are generally used to peeling drunks off the sidewalk and breaking up brawling frat bros. This was really serious and strange, and I think the dispatcher got the sense from my tone how terrified I was. She stayed on the phone with me. At one point, the banging stopped and everything was quiet for a while. I talked with the dispatcher and suddenly looked down to see that this guy had slipped his fingers through the 1-inch gap between my door and the floor and was kind of waggling them around, making this weird growling noise. I screamed and backed away, which is my biggest regret about the situation, since when I look back on it, it would have been so awesome to just stomp his fingers and hear him yowl in pain. When the cops rolled up, I heard running and the sound of our sliding glass door opening and closing. And then he was gone. Cops never got him. He had broken in through our side door by jimmying the lock somehow. My door was covered in what turned out to be huge gauges he'd made using a pair of scissors, which he discarded on the ground before he left. What terrifies me most about this is that I walked right past him. I looked right in his face. I realized now that he was not trying to sleep nor on drugs, but was lying so stiff because he was hiding. He probably heard me open the door and freaked out because he hadn't realized there was another girl living there, trying to blend into the couch in the darkness. It was 2012, and my best friend Hannah had convinced me to join her on a weekend trip up north. She had, after searching for the longest time, found her dream car and was planning on traveling the 900 kilometers to the very north of Sweden to buy it. It was a second-hand two-door Suzuki Vitara in a purplish kind of color. I must admit I didn't share her obsession with it, but with her being the closest thing to a sister that I will ever get, I was happy to join her nonetheless. Hannah and I have always had each other, from cradle and onwards, sharing each other's love for adventure. We traveled the world together. At this time, we were both 21 and had recently returned from a trip in Asia. The man who was selling her the car had agreed to meet us at the airport in Umeå. When we arrived shortly before lunchtime, it had started to snow heavily. First snow of the season, no less. The parking lot was almost empty, and when I saw the man standing outside the Vitara, I felt immediately concerned. He's dressed like a hunter. A lot of people in this area of the country live a lifestyle with hunting and fishing, so nothing strange with that really, but still, something about him that made me uneasy. He was nice enough, smiling and waving to us, shaking hands with us both before walking us around the car and pointing out all the tiny little flaws. He showed us the work he had done to it, and showed the paperwork from the recently done engine repairs. He made the impression that he didn't want to hide anything. On the contrary, he made a show out of being very forthcoming and honest. The snow had now intensified and we were getting cold. He opened the car door for us and said, "I got the paperwork at home. Let's close the deal over some coffee." Against all my instincts, I climbed in after Hannah, both of us now trapped in the back seat. I had no reason to feel threatened by this man who had been nothing but pleasant to us, other than the alarm bells going off inside my head. I can't tell what it was that made me feel that way, but there must have been some sign that something was wrong, something that my subconscious tuned into. The man was constantly talking. Funny, since people from the north of Scandinavia are famous for never speaking a word more than absolutely necessary. He showed the stereo, told us about the features of the car, about the places we drove past, about the wildlife and the nature. There was not a silent moment. After about 20 minutes, I started to notice that we were in no way moving into the direction of civilization. Instead, it seemed that we were driving further and further into the vast wilderness. It had struck me that he had us in the back of a two-door car, driving us into unknown territory, and no one knew where we were. I looked at Hannah, who was happily listening to the man telling stories about the area. I noticed she didn't look worried at all. Maybe I was totally overreacting. We drove past a group of people standing by the side of the road. Hunters planning their day or taking a break, maybe. This truly is a very different Sweden compared to the city. The car finally stopped outside a small wooden cottage with no neighboring houses, apart from a small cabin that we drove past a few hundred meters down the road. But it looked empty. We followed the man inside. He was still talking nonstop and continued to do so until the moment the door closed behind us. Hannah kept asking things about the car, and I could sense that her voice had a new undertone now. Thin, sharp tenseness that made me wonder if she too had started to feel that something wasn't right. "I'll put the kettle on," he said. And as he passed us to go into the kitchen, He let his hand touch Hannah's hair and smiled smugly. "May I use the bathroom?" I asked politely and made my way to the door with a little red heart on. I was washing my hands when I saw something in the stained bathroom mirror. Something was hidden behind the water cistern. I pulled out a rolled up plastic folder, and as I turned the pages, I felt my blood run cold. It was very violent. Porn pictures that looked like they had been cut out from magazines, and they were glued to the paper, surrounded by cutout pieces of handwritten text. Put together, it made a horrifying story about how a woman was lured into a car with the promise of getting to buy the car cheaply. And then it quickly turned into a horror story. I knew this will sound silly, but when we traveled together, Hannah and I had a code word for whenever we felt it was time to get out of a situation. We had never needed to use it, just joked about it, but now it came in handy. I walked out of the bathroom and looked at Hannah and said, "Potatoes. We forgot to buy potatoes, and that's too bad because good God do we need some." The look on my face must have told her that the situation was no joke, and she said, "Oh, should we get some as soon as possible?" "The sooner the better," I replied. Hannah, always pretty charming and capable of great acting, casually walked over to the man in the kitchen, tapped his shoulder, and said, "Excuse me, but I was wondering if I can go have a quick look at the cam belt." He huffed something about it being in good shape and handed over the keys. We got into the car and speeded off faster than the weather, strictly speaking, allowed. We left the car at the airport and hoped we hadn't made a terrible mistake. What if he reported it stolen? It would be embarrassing to explain to the police, but nothing happened. He didn't follow us, didn't report it. We had to take the train since we had no plane tickets. The original plan had been to take the car home, and we didn't want to linger close to the airport in case he came looking for us. Later, Hannah asked what made me use the code word, and I told her about what I had found. It might just have been a sick game, a fantasy, and maybe he would never have done anything to us. But right then and there, I was convinced we would die if we didn't get out. Thank God Hannah didn't need any convincing or proof, just the code word. I truly think if we hadn't talked about it so many times before, about how we would handle a situation where we'd need to get out of fast, things would have ended differently. Both of us knew that if we ever need to use the code word, it's time to get out. No questions asked. Just move. Late last year, I had my 21st birthday. Along with celebrating with my friends, my boyfriend's mom wanted to take me out as well. So his mom went ahead and reserved a table at a bar in downtown for Saturday night. The night comes and there's major traffic, but it's always packed in downtown on the weekends, so this is expected. His mom and I park in a tall parking lot. We have to walk about 5 blocks to the bar where we're going to meet my boyfriend and everyone else at. So we start walking and arrive at a crosswalk, and we have to wait. There's maybe 8 other people standing at this crosswalk with us. I'm just patiently standing there minding my own business when suddenly I notice this girl standing next to me. She startled me, to be honest. 1, because of how she seemed to appear out of thin air, and 2, because of how close she was standing next to me. It almost felt like as if she was trying to huddle into me. Like, you know when a little kid is shy and will try to hide behind his or her parent? Yeah, that's how she was, except she was just leaning into me, and she had her shoulders hunched over. Her hair was black and long, at least down to her waist. She had on a long striped dress that went down to her ankles, a leather jacket, sandals. She looked to be around my age. She had dark tan skin and black eyes. Her attire was normal. She didn't act normal. She was being really weird and kept plugging her nose as if she smelled something really bad. She kept skittishly looking around as if she expected something to pop out and grab her. To be honest, she was acting like a scared animal, but her demeanor was cold. Her eyes felt like they were dead and empty, and her face held no emotion. So, not liking how close she got to me, I took a few steps to the side. And guess what? She stepped towards me and got as close as she was the first time. Well, I sort of thought that was weird, but gave the situation the benefit of the doubt. Plus, the crosswalk light turned green right after she came close to me, so I figured I didn't have to deal with her because we would walk our separate ways, right? Wrong. She walked across the street and first few blocks with me, staying the same closeness she was at, no matter where I moved to. No matter how many times she got lost in the crowd of people, she would scurry up right next to me again, all the while plugging her nose and looking around everywhere. She made me feel weird. My boyfriend's mom, at this point, confronted the girl, saying, "Hey, do you need something? Are you okay or what?" To which the girl responded, "It's not safe." After she said that, she slowly lifted her head, cocked it slightly, and looked me dead in my eyes. Her mouth quivered. My boyfriend's mom and I just looked at each other like, what the f? At that point, I just wanted to get away from this weirdo. It was bad enough she couldn't stop invading my personal space and following me, but now she's saying all this weird while looking at me? Nope, 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 nope. Boyfriend's mom pulls me to her and whispers to me in my ear, "Walk faster and don't look at her. I want to see if she's following us." So that's exactly what I do, and guess what? She follows us all the way to the bar. Despite my boyfriend's mom telling her, "Please stop getting so close to us," she responded with, "I want to stay with you guys." Despite taking unnecessary turns to see if she would follow us, she would. I was freaking out internally all the way there. We finally get to the bar. We bat our IDs as quickly as we can so we can get inside and away from the freak following us. You guys, she followed us inside and sat at our table, but she sits at the furthest side of the table, and she starts to scoot herself over. But she only moves over when we look away. You turn your head and boom, she's managed to hop 1 seat closer to you, and she's just staring the whole time with this blank expression on her face. My boyfriend's mom has had it at this point and gets up to tell the bodyguard to make the girl leave. The bodyguard comes, tells the girl she has to go, and she actually starts to argue with him. I didn't catch the whole conversation over the loud music, but I caught the girl asking him why she had to leave and saying that she can sit anywhere she wanted to. She began to get really aggressive once he told her that this was a reserved table for us and our group that she was not a part of. She got all fussy and looked at me with malice before she got up and stormed out. She didn't leave right away. She stood outside, looking in at me through the open patio at the front of the bar. She wasn't moving and seemed to care less about the hustle and bustle of the people around her. She stood there for about 15 minutes before finally leaving to God knows where. It's just this really bad and dark feeling I got from her. She made me really nervous for some reason. She just felt wrong. I mean, she was probably someone just cracked out on drugs, but it was super creepy and I hope I never see her again. I have never spoken a word of this, not even to my parents or anyone around me. I'm 22 years old. This happened when I was 14. It went on for about a year. My parents and I would always hang out at the local mall during our free time. One day I had arrived earlier than my friends and was waiting at a seating area in the food court. There were a couple of couches around each other, and it was a common area for anyone to sit, so I didn't really notice when a man came over and sat at a couch across from me. I was sitting on my phone, not paying attention, until he spoke up and said something along the lines of, "Do you come here often?" I looked up to see a man who was in his late 50s. I told him I often did with my friends, and he then introduced himself. I still remember his first name, as it was the same as my dad's. I did not get an initial weird feeling. He looked normal enough, and I would have no reason to be initially weirded out by somebody. So I told him my name, and we started making small talk. I'm a sociable person and have been from a very young age, so I was fine talking with what I assumed was just an older man wanting to talk to somebody. He started asking me about things that I liked to do, and I said I enjoyed going out to the local lake, fishing, swimming, and that kind of stuff. To which he responded by saying he went out to the same lake every weekend. and enjoyed fishing and swimming as well. I said I enjoyed making music, and he said he liked music also. Told him I was an avid piano player, and he excitedly told me that he had a piano at his house. There were a few other things I mentioned, and to everyone he said he enjoyed doing them also. And it felt normal at first, but as we talked, kept getting a weirder and weirder feeling. It's almost like with everything he said, he was trying to prove something and win me over. He said he had a boat at the lake. We should go sometime. He even said that he lived right across the street from the mall, and that I was welcome to stop by and play the piano for him. He even went as far as to tell me the complex he lived in and how to get there from the mall. He even said if I'd like, I could come over that same day. With each passing minute, it felt like he was trying harder and harder to get me to hang out with him. Talking with him honestly gave me the weirdest primal instinct ever. Like I was in the face of evil or bad intentions. After about 5 to 10 minutes of talking to him, I lied and said my friends had arrived and that I was going to go find them. He said okay, rather sad tone, and wished me well. A couple of weeks go by. My friends and I go to the mall once again. We were all walking through the mall when out of the corner of my eye I see the same man in a hoodie walking past us in the opposite direction. We locked eyes for a split second and my heart immediately dropped. I didn't look back and I honestly forgot about it not soon after. But for the next 2 months or so, I would keep seeing him randomly at the mall. I kept brushing it off as coincidence, as there are definitely regulars at the mall who go there often, so I really didn't think too much of seeing him, as he never spoke to me since the first day. I would just occasionally see him and he'd be looking at me. I was naive and had a semi-weird feeling anytime I saw him, but I brushed it off. Until one day, I went to the mall with my friends. We hung out for a few hours before all leaving and going our separate ways. I get home and go into my room. No one else was home and I was by myself for a couple of hours. My mom comes home from work around 8 o'clock, comes into my room looking somewhat worried, asking if I noticed a guy outside. I said no. She showed me her phone. We have 2 cameras, one in the front of the house and one in the back. About 20 minutes after I got home, someone approached our house. We lived off of a very busy street, and our front wall blocks a majority of the view of the street, so we do not see a car park or anything, just a male walking up to our house from the street. The camera was located near our front door looking out to the driveway. So as he got closer, I realized it was the same man who I had seen at the mall. I immediately felt sick to my stomach. He came and looked through the front door glass. He walked over to the side of our house near our driveway and left the view of the camera. I remember there was nothing on the back camera, so he had to have stayed by the side of our house for a bit. My room is not located over there, so I have no idea what he could have been doing. He then came back around and looked through the front door again before walking away. I don't know if I was just too embarrassed or scared to say anything, but I said I did not notice and didn't know who that was. My mom found it weird that he was looking in our house, but said it could have been some drug addict or homeless guy, because we do live off of a busy street with a bus stop right in front of the house. My dad added more security cameras after this to deter people, and I never admitted to seeing him before. But after he showed up to my house, confirmed to me that he was following me around, and I don't know what his intentions were. He never came back. We moved to a different part of the city not too long after, and I was too far to go to that mall again. I've not seen him since. I never wish to again.